Orca mothers make lifelong sacrifices for their sons. And feminists have an issue with that now. What's happened is that research has found out that orca females have this winning reproductive strategy where rather than give birth multiple times themselves, they give birth to a son, which they take care of even in their adulthood, and the son impregnates multiple females, thereby passing on her genes. It's a winning strategy. And these feminists hate that because the male is favored. This is a feminist, Victoria Gill. She wrote this article. There she is. She's a feminist. And these man-haters hate the male so much that they are going to take their hostility towards the human male and transfer it to males of other species. And they will interfere with this winning mating strategy out of resentment to male creatures. They're going to suggest it down at the bottom of this. Now, to put this in a big light, they're going to admit this. What happens is these killer whales, just like any other giant mammal, like elephants, they don't give birth to litters. They only have one calf at a time, and the gestation period is a long time. So rather than try and give birth multiple times, the females say, oh, I'll just give a birth to a male and let him do the impregnating. That way she doesn't have to get impregnating. She doesn't have to give birth multiple times. It's not just a sacrifice to the son. It's also sacrificing other females. She said, why should I get pregnant 3 times in a row? I'll just have other females get pregnant with my son's DNA, with my son's genetics. It's a winning strategy. Now, how do I know it's winning? Well, how long have human beings been around? A few 100,000 years. See? How long have killer whales been around? 50 million years. 50 million years. So we know it's a winning reproductive strategy. But because male individuals benefit, these people have an issue with it. Now listen to them. Rearing a son significantly reduced the female killer whale's chance of reproducing in the future. That doesn't matter to her because that's not how she passes her genes on, right? The energy they need to feed son appears to compromise their health, leaving them less able to reproduce and raise other young. Well, so what? Isn't that the big brag of motherhood, right, everyone? That they sacrifice for their children? Well, they have an issue with this because it is male children that they do the sacrificing for. That's the issue these feminist monsters have, right? Orcas remain closely bonded to their families throughout their lives, but while female offspring become independent in adulthood, see how this scumbag is framing it? Males depend on the mothers, even demanding a share of the food that their matriarchs catch. First of all, they're not dependent on them. You guys think these male orcas don't eat a fish when they see one swimming around or go after a seal? Of course they do. They're independent animals like their sisters. It's just that their mothers are adding to it. You say want them to become the biggest male. And they're not demanding anything. See how they contradict themselves? They call them matriarchs. Killer whales is a matriarchal society. The females rule. So the males aren't demanding anything. These matriarchs are making decisions to give freely to their sons. See? So they can't help it. They contradict themselves. Feminists are anti-science. They're anti-science. Okay? Now, they're going to admit what I just said about how this is a winning strategy for these animals, right? Down here. Yeah, here we are. This could, the researchers think, be a kind of evolutionary bet hedging, driven by the fact that the biggest, oldest males go on to further many offspring, right? If a mother can get her son to become the big male in the population, then he's the one that will sire much of the next generation. There you go, everyone. They just admitted what I just said. It's a winning biological strategy that's worked for 50 million years, right? And so they have an issue with this, right? And of course, they insult the males, even though they're just dumb animals. It may seem paradoxical that such a powerful, intelligent animals remain dependent on their mothers throughout their lives. But it appears that the males simply don't have to become independent because their mother remains by their side. Now, if my mother cooked my dinner for me every night, perhaps I just wouldn't learn to cook on my own dinner. Joked Professor Croft. Professor Croft is a scumbag. Because like I said, these males aren't sitting around waiting for their mothers to feed them. They feed themselves and their mothers add to it. So they have to misframe this situation to attack the male animals. Now, here's the most spooky part. They're going to suggest interfering with this, right? There are currently just 73 of these killer whales left. So the scientists say they need to understand anything that could help inform decisions about how to protect these marine animals. These southern resident killer whales are balancing on a knife edge and at the risk of extinction. So anything that reduces females' reproduction is a concern for this population. See what they're implying here. They're implying that this winning reproduction or reproductive strategy isn't winning, and they should interfere with it, which means what? They're implying that they're going to drive the males off from their mothers so they don't get any freebies from them, or maybe even kill them off, forcing the killer whales' mothers to have to give birth, produce, get pregnant more, taking more energy from her that way. So these feminist scumbags, what they're doing is they're suggesting taking a winning strategy that's worked for 50 million years and interfere with it merely because male individuals gain by it. Now, I'm going to contrast. Do they ever suggest that for animals like lions or gorillas, where their reproductive strategy, the males suffer? Right? Like, how do they work it? The males fight with one another, and the winner gets a harem. So all the females get to pass their genes on, and only one male gets to. When these animals suffer getting close to extinction, do they ever suggest screwing around with the reproductive abilities or reproductive strategy? Never. Because the fact that this has worked for killer whales for 50 million years means that shouldn't be touched. Killer whales are endangered because of human activity. Either they're being hunted by humans and or the water's getting polluted. That's what's going on here. So there shouldn't be any talk about interfering with what happens between the mothers and their sons. But that's what they're suggesting. So any animal that the males suffer in order to pass on their genes, that's a-okay. We can't touch those. It's better that they go extinct than fool around. But these feminist scumbags, they will drive these killer whales into an extinction rather than have a species where the male enjoys benefits, that the male has privileges over the females. These monsters will destroy a species out of their hatred for the male gender. I want you to think about that. We have to take these feminists and kick them out of any position that is important to society, that influences society, that has control in society. Because these anti-science, disgusting scumbags will sacrifice life for their hatred. Okay? Thank you.